Let's break the mold and stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. Welcome to Stanley on 7. We're here until it's here.
And welcome back. This is Stanley on 7th, your favorite Wild podcast, a Pull Tab Sports production. Hey, the Wild have been absolutely humming along. Things have been going really well. 17, 1-3 in their last 21 points. That means points in 20 of their last 21. Problem is they're racing against the Blues, who I think have gotten points in their last 16, 14, 0-2. So home ice, I think it's going to end up being critical, Kinger. The Wild are in a race for it. Unfortunately, last night, the Wild kind of had a little bit of a stinker. Arizona, I don't know if it was one of those trap games or they overlooked them a little bit. It was a big day, Kirill's birthday. We should have been celebrating and having the time of our lives for 97 and the century mark, man. But run us through your day. You were at the game.
Yep.
What'd you feel?
Well, I was real excited about the birthday. I know that that's against Coach Evanson's teammates' philosophy. There's no person that shines brighter than the group. But did go up the hill to Moscow on the hill.
Borscht.
And I think they did have borscht. I didn't have it. But I think the expectation was low on the Russian food. Like, this is going to be really terrible. But first of all, amazing bar up there. It's almost like Monte Carlo or the St. Paul Hotel. It's one of those mirrored walls of sauce, like those awesome bars.
Mm-hmm.
And then the food was really good. I had like a lamb sausage. We had some like garlic chip kind of things, like little potato things. And I had two martinis that were called a Sputnik. They had some horseradish vodka in them. So the night started great. Like, this is all happening. We're going to drive down the hill and we're going to go watch. And then the game was weird. I think you had a Wild team that was just trying to sweat, and not get hurt. And it was an interesting game because I think if there was a fight at the start of the third, like if Delorier just was like, enough of this bullshit. You're the worst team in the NHL. This is our game. We probably could have won last night, but we weren't playing. It's like a weird time. It's like these weird fast forward games. It's really a time you can get hurt.
Yeah.
Because you're playing like this weird speed. And I think Arizona just had a bunch of guys probably from the American League or whatever that are just like nothing to lose, running around and they won, So it wasn't a great hockey game. It seemed like no one really cared, though. We're kind of in fast forward mode to the playoffs. Blues lost too, maybe, to Colorado.
Yeah, the Blues lost, so you didn't lose any ground. The Wild still have their own fate in terms of home ice in their own hands. But so was your day yesterday, Moscow on the hill, was that kind of a gift to yourself? Because it was just your birthday. April 25th is your birthday, and the day after is Kirill Kaprizov's. And you had mentioned to me earlier that you maybe didn't have the best birthday, but you were excited to be able to have a good day on Kirill's birthday. Was it a gift to yourself?
Birthdays depress me. I don't like birthdays. I don't know what it is. I really don't like them.
Unless they're Kirill's.
Well, yes. So with Kirill, it was like it was more of a theme party. I love a theme party. Like, it's so dumb, but like, yeah, let's go eat borscht and drink martinis, and I actually wore red, blue, and white. But the obviously the Putin thing makes the Russia thing sort of weird. So I'm not pro terrible, but I am pro Kirill. But it was great. Actually, the food was great. I liked the restaurant. It was our waitress. I'm like, what do you recommend? And she goes, well, I'm a vegetarian. And that's always the best, where you're at like a Russian restaurant with like beef stroganoff and chicken Kiev, and it's just like a worthless recommendation. But it was good. Should we talk about how you wedding planned me today?
Sure.
So Ryan tells me that we're starting at 9:45, and I am flying down to the studio. I'm on two wheels most of the way. I pull in late, of course. I probably get here at 9:48. And then I just watch him writing in his notebook for 10 minutes. And I actually said, are we starting at 9:45 or 10? Did you wedding plan me? And he's like, yeah, I did. we're starting at 10.
How did you feel about that?
Well, it probably was a good idea. I mean, I was on time technically. I would have been late otherwise.
Here's the issue. We had something that had to start right at 10. Usually, whenever we have our podcast, we start at the top of the hour, but we probably don't start until 10 or 15 minutes later because there's stuff we have to talk about and figure out. But we had to start right at that time, so that's why Wedding planned you. And it worked.
It was cool. It was cool. Hey, do you think last night does last night matter at all?
I think it matters. And I think I said this going home, the Wild are going to find a way to turn last night's game into a positive. They've been able to turn their L's into W's all season long. If they had the Blues won, I think that's a different story. But the Blues lost, so it was like, hey, it's okay. Whatever happened, we can turn the page. It's not that big a deal. We're still in control of our own fate. Go into games and we have home ice no matter what. But I think you're right in that the Wild didn't. It's not that they didn't care about that game. I think they thought they looked past it. And Arizona is not threatening whatsoever. They are so bad. 32nd offensively, 31st defensively, 26 total power play goals on the season. I said this during the broadcast. Chris Kreider of the New York Rangers has 26 power play goals himself, right? The team is bad. Their kill is bad. Up and down. I couldn't pronounce half the names on the team because I hadn't heard them. I called Moser. It was Mosier. I didn't know any of that stuff. I should have studied a little bit more. But and I'm a little guilty in that regard too, because apparently I didn't care.
You overlooked it.
I didn't care about it. But what the point that you made is that these games don't really matter, and that is true. And I think that is an issue with the way that the playoff structure is set up. If it was still the old 1 versus 8 in the West,
matters a lot.
They matter because every point matters, and you don't know if you can catch the next team or not. But the Wild are in a spot where they are straight locked up with St. Louis. They've known it for a week. These games matter, but they really don't. The thing that matters the absolute most is staying healthy. And I think if you rewind to the Nashville game, they lose Jared Spurgeon 5 minutes in. That's exactly what they do not want. And I think the Wild, through 40 minutes, they only had 6 total hits. That is not Wild hockey, right? They're a big, heavy team on the forecheck, and they almost played like, hey, we're making sure we're not getting hurt.
And that's when you get hurt.
That is when you get hurt.
I mean, I've been looking at these last 2 games and just the speed, and it looks like guys are going to get hurt. You know, they're not playing their normal style. It's not full send. And when you're not playing full send, that's when you get hurt. I want to talk about the goaltending for a minute because it's interesting. Stylistically, these goalies are so different. Fleury is, he rolls around. All I can think of when I watch Fleury is a street hockey goalie in the driveway. Mm-hmm. He spends a lot of time laying on the ground after a goal or laying on his stomach and trying to reach his glove up. And Talbot is so controlled. He's so robotic, I guess would be the negative way to say it. But I just find with the nervousness of the playoffs coming, which we'll get into with our guest later, but I kind of need a Talbot for the playoffs because the Fleury thing is just freaking me out, man. It's like cartwheels and lying on the ice. And I just want a steady, quiet hand, quiet feet of Cam Talbot.
So you want Talbot game 1?
I do, just because I don't know. There's something too erratic about the Flower. All I can see is one of those plastic helmets in the driveway. I don't like it. I want a guy pushing from post to post, calm demeanor, never even expressionless. Beard. That's what I want. I just want Minnesotans got a lot to get through these, 16 W's. I think I need a goalie with quiet feet.
Are you saying you have a little bit of, careful what you wish for when it comes to Flower? I think everybody wanted him, Flower. I think everybody was excited about him. Now he's come in and he's been Flower. I think the reason that he brings national clout to the club too is because of his style of play and the big save, and it's entertaining to watch. I think at times for fans and for coaches, it might be stressful, but I think he gets the job done at the end of the day. I think that was his 10th game in the Wild sweater. He's 8-2, right? And maybe the goals against aren't fantastic, but he's kept the team in the game. He's the kind of guy, though, that can absolutely steal a series, steal a game. He made a couple highlight reel saves in the Arizona game. I think he also, boy, it's not good practice to flip the switch or to have to rely on flipping the switch to take your game to the next level, but I do think he's capable of that. I'm with you, though, that I do think from the trade till now that Cam Talbot has looked better, but it is entirely two different styles of play.
Yeah.
Marc-Andre Fleury relies on athleticism, his ability to read plays. He can make huge saves, and at times that makes him a little bit unpredictable, which also makes him hard to score on. Cam Talbot, way more predictable, plays the percentages. I'm going to be here. I'm going to make the saves I should make, but you're going to score on the ones that I shouldn't make. He's not going to make highlight reels. He's not going to be on SportsCenter top 10. Everything's going to hit him, and he's going to be balanced and square. But Marc-Andre Fleury, the day after the game, you might see him have 2 saves on the SportsCenter top 10, and it's what you want to ride with. And I can see the building having the roof blown off with Fleury in the net, and a tennis match with Cam Talbot. Hey, good job.
Yeah, and to be clear, I'll trust whatever Billy decides on the goaltending. They've both been good. It's just for my heart, Charlie Chaplin in net is a lot harder than a robot. So I just am too invested in this team. I don't think I can handle the Flower. It's like he's wearing a rose on his lapel and squirting water out of it. He's just such a circus performer that I just think I don't know if I can handle it. But he might be the guy in the playoffs, and he does everything we expect him to do. I don't think I can handle it.
Well, I would encourage you, if you're feeling stressed out about it and you need to chill out, maybe just grab a beer. I don't know what kind of beer you would grab.
I would do a Big Wood beer. I would go down to Big Wood Brewery or just buy a 4-pack, at your local Minnesota liquor store. They're only in Minnesota. Get a Bad Axe, get a Amigo Grande. Maybe get a Cabin Days. If it ever stops being 40 degrees in Minnesota, I would drink a Cabin Days because that reminds us of our pontoons and putting the life jackets on like diapers and floating around in the water with some Big Wood. But come visit them in the tap room in White Bear Lake or pick up a 4-pack at your local Minnesota liquor store.
Wow, that sounds
Big Wood.
Good. That sounds good. You know who I'd like to share a 4-pack with?
Who?
The Grief Line. They're back intact.
And they were awesome.
It was good to see him. I think they too flipped a switch. They dipped the toe the first 2 periods, and then they found themselves trailing in the third, and that's why they're the identity line. I think they started to will this comeback. The Wild down 3-1 to start the third period. Then all of a sudden, boom, boom. That line got going. Eriksson gets on the board. Marcus Foligno gets another one, and they just kind of dominated from that point on. I mean, how huge is it for the Wild to have those guys back? I don't think that they played their best game, but I do think it was a process, and they were knocking off a little bit of rust. And when you see them on the ice as a fan in their Kirill's birthday dominating, what did you feel?
Well, 1 + 1 + 1 = 100 with the Grief Line. That's what we know. You got to have all of them, and when you do, they will put the opposition in the wood chipper, and they will chip in offensively. They are amazing. They are the identity line. I was so happy to see them all back. They looked good. What you were missing last night is I was pretty sure that Zuki was going to jump out of a cake for Kirill's birthday, but he was not in the lineup. And we've talked about this. It's a real problem for the Minnesota Wild if you don't have 36 in the lineup. It changes.
Kirill looked frustrated for the first. He looked frustrated to me for the first time.
I mean, that is his guy. You could totally, panic and give him Boldy or do something to help him. But I'm glad Dean didn't do that. But he needs 36.
If you're scouting the Wild, you watch that game, and I saw Kirill try to take guys one-on-one and do things by himself that he hasn't had to do because he didn't have his dude with him on the same page. Like, let's 2-on-1 everybody out here and make some great passes, and that's where we're going to get our scoring chance. He tried to do it by himself for the first time.
Watching him on the bench when Zuccarello's not there, it's
just a lost puppy.
Oh my God, he's at a 5.
Doesn't know where to sit.
5 out of 10.
Who do I sit by?
It's like when I go to hockey and Guzzo's not there. It's just terrible. It's just they're interlocked. I hope he's healthy. Is he healthy? And what's going on with Spurgeon?
We'll get into the health, yeah, for sure. But if you ever go to like the horse races and they have like that calming horse that walks the race horse down?
Yeah.
That's like Zuki for Kirill right now. Like he just needs to be sitting on the bench. He can't play. Even if he's in his suit, just put a helmet on that guy and have him sit next to Kirill on the bench.
Like worst birthday ever playing without Zuki. Like he probably just they probably flew his parents in.
He hates
and he's
25.
just like, there's no Zuki, no joy.
He hates 25.
He's not even blowing out the candles.
It sounds like most everybody's going to be healthy for the playoffs. I think there's a couple of question marks. I think if the playoffs were to start tomorrow, that Zuccarello could play. Obviously, Greenway's back in. I don't know about Jared Spurgeon. I think they were really concerned about that, but I've heard from 3 or 4 sources, Bill Guerin, one of them too, where they got really good news on it.
Okay.
And it's going to be shorter term than what they thought. I think they're still going to be very cautious with that stuff, and they're going to have an eye on game 1 versus game 82. But it sounds like there's a chance that they could have all hands on deck, and that would be obviously fantastic for the Wild.
Yeah, no, I think they need them. We've proven that we really do need our lineup. What about Dumba?
Yeah, so Dumba's I think, I don't know what the injury is. He's trending in the right direction. I think of all question marks, he's the biggest. I think they're still hopeful that he's ready to return and can get a game in before the playoffs, but he's the guy where they're like, we're not sure we're going to have a contingency plan. But it'd be nice for them to. I'm going to segue my own self into an ad read now,
okay?
Because
that's what it was like for Kirill.
Having all their critical systems together will be good for them. And as spring approaches, I think we should all be considering our critical home systems and making sure that we're doing what we can to maintain them. Aquarius Home Services can take care of all of those for you. I just got my $55 AC tune-up, and let me tell you, it was a pretty good bang for my buck there. He was my tech, Mike, showed up on time, sent me a text message. It was kind of great. In the text message, it said he lives on a golf course. This is what he does in his free time. So had all those little talkers to go through to, something to chat about.
It's like a Lyft driver.
Yeah.
That's chatty.
The small talk.
How were his booties?
The booties were great. Respected the house, took care of it, knew more about it than I did. I was surprised at some of the things he taught me. Very patient with his time, answered all of my questions, but he got the AC tuned up, gave me a couple pointers on the furnace, which were really good pointers. They're going to help me out. He's going to clean up the air in my house for sure. But yeah, it was a fantastic experience. I don't think that you're going to get a better deal for $55. Aquarius, they're earning the right to be recommended, and I certainly do recommend them specifically and purposefully after that experience with Mike.
Well done. We got a special guest this week, don't we?
We do have a special guest, yeah, and I think it's important because we've got to remember what we're here to do and to break a mold. And we're getting into the end of the regular season here for the Minnesota Wild, into the playoffs. I think they've broken some molds, but I think it's tempting at times to fall back to our old ways, to get nervous, to protect ourselves from maybe going all in with the club we love. How are you feeling as we approach that time, and what do you think we need?
I'm super scared. I'm really attached to this team, and I don't want it all to be for naught. And I'm knocking on wood. I'm worried about the goaltending. So we for sure need a professional to come in here and hold our hands and help us have positive thoughts, not negative thoughts.
We don't know what we don't know. And sometimes we've got to educate ourselves, and what we're feeling are real feelings. But at the same time, I think we can recognize them and probably channel them to a spot where, hey, when we're in that XL Energy Center and we're cheering, that we're projecting positive vibes. And that's why I wanted to bring in our guest today. We're super, super excited to have Allie Wagener. She's the licensed psychologist. She's worked with the Minnesota Wild in the past. Allie, how are you doing today?
I'm well, thank you. How are you all?
Well, we're fantastic. Tell us about what you do. And I have worked, so during my playing days, I've worked with sports psychologists, and it was really intriguing. It's really helped me. Can you tell me the process and what you do to help athletes?
Yeah. So my background is I'm a clinical and sports psychologist. Really what I do is I'm a performance psychologist. It means I just went to school for a really long time. But you guys, my job is I want to help athletes, performers, no matter what level they are, whether it's a 5-year-old to a 70-year-old, professional athlete to a youth, is I want to help them be their best, but be consistent. And I think we talk a lot about consistency, whether it's an attitude, mental game, performance on the ice, interactions, relationships with coaches, teammates, your spouses, is consistency is key. And I think as a performance psychologist, our job is to help figure out what helps us get there, elevate your game to like that optimal level. And then what kind of gets in our way, what's those barriers? And then how do we have strategies, techniques to either prevent those barriers from coming up, or when they do, we feel solid to handle it, versus now we're in the box for 2 minutes.
So put me on in the room with you there. I'm an athlete, and I say, hey, listen, I start to feel really good about myself, but then I just know in the back of my mind that eventually I'm going to screw up, and that's what's going to define me. I think at times that's how the Minnesota Wild and their fan base, that's how they look at it. Like, hey, we're really good at times, but I just know at the end I'm going to make some big mistake, and it's going to cost me everything, and I know it's coming. What would you say if that was an issue I brought to you?
Yeah. Well, I would first ask why we're thinking that way. Like what data, what information is right leading you to that? Or is it a feeling driving you, right? When we get nervous, I think a protective factor, we think about how do we, what's worst case scenario, that like catastrophic big time thinking of like the worst case scenario. And we want to prep for that, but also sometimes we get so sucked into that then it affects our performance right here, right now. And so I think the biggest thing would be, let's build on what you're doing right now. We have to have kind of that short, almost like blinders on right here. What am I doing this shift, this play right here, right now? And we will deal with the stuff down the road if that mistake happens.
I think that's super helpful, because what's going on is Minnesotans have this body of work, right? We've got the Vikings doing terrible things to us. The Timberwolves are doing it right now. The Twins having all these great seasons, and they lose to the Yankees in the first round. You're kind of saying this has never happened before. The 21-22 Minnesota Wild is a new thing. It whatever happened in Minnesota, this hangover that you guys got, has got no business with what's about to happen. So are we okay to just look at this team and all of that heavy weight on our shoulders? We should just let it go and focus on the moment right now with this group?
I would love that. Yeah. But that's really easier said than done.
Yeah, no kidding.
So how
do we do that?
Is that the same way of saying like past behaviors do not dictate future results, like future actions? Because you can't reflect on things that have occurred in the past and say it's going to repeat itself if you believe that. I mean, does that make sense?
I think timing of that. So Ryan, like that's a great question, because again, in the middle of the game, I mean, think back when you're playing, what happened first shift, first period, that's right. We want to learn from that if it didn't go well. But during a game, second period is not where you're going to necessarily process, watch film, work with coach to figure out what to do. That's going to be something you're going to watch film at practice to review, to say, how do we prevent that or learn from it? Almost that growth mindset. I think during games, and especially during kind of championship season, playoff hockey, which there isn't anything better, is we gotta build that confidence, our trust in ourselves, that self-esteem, and just the fun of it.
Right. So can you run us through like an assessment? Let's say you're meeting me for the first time, an athlete. John, he was a wonderful athlete once upon a time too.
Brian has said he's an athlete twice so far. We're like 3 minutes in.
we have an over under on how many times I'll say that. No, I'm kidding.
I've never actually heard you say it.
But run me through an assessment. How does it go?
So typically the athlete will come in, and depending kind of what organization or what level they're at, but we would come in and it's almost like the get to know you session. we want to talk about performance, but it's also like kind of a holistic. We want to look at the person because we know family life, depending the age, academics, social scene, pressure, all that stuff contributes to performance on the playing field, on the rink, whatever venue you're performing on, or even in like with business professionals I work with, right? Like in your job, how do you perform to your best? But we kind of do that kind of well-rounded 360 approach to kind of see what's contributing that makes you work, and then what's maybe hindering that. And so we kind of do that assessment to figure what's helping and hurting. And then I think another big thing we'll talk about is like what's in your control, what's not in your control. And then how do we give you those tools to work through those? And then we come up with a mental game plan. It's almost like a mental training plan, just as coach might come up with a training, or strength and conditioning might come up with your, lifting schedule. We're going to do the same thing from the mental side of things. And then depending on where you're at in season, it might look a little different, prepping for playoffs versus off-season mental training.
I like that. I like that correlation to the way that you'd maybe train for like physical improvement with the strength coach or skating, because I think so often when you get into sport, you hear it's 90% mental, the further along you get, and that leads you to 10% for the physical, but you spend 90% of your time training your physical body and your physical skills and only 10% training your mind. Do you think that number is off? Like, should it be higher where you're spending more time thinking about this mental side of it and preparing for it?
100%. When I work with people trying to get to that, top 1% of the NHL or the top of their league, is I look around and I say, okay, this is the best of the best are here, but why are they here? Oftentimes they're doing something different. Everybody's putting time in on the ice, bag skating, working on stick handling, getting into the gym to lift. Everybody's doing that. But if we can add in that mental component, and again, there's small adjustments we're making. We're especially at the pro level with the Wild, like you're dealing with top level competition and athletes. It's going to be little tweaks that make the difference, that you're doing that maybe your opponent's not doing. If you can add in more time, absolutely. So let me ask you guys this question. If you guys think about like your best performance, whether that is in sport or in a professional other setting, what made that the best? If you think about that right now, what would be 2 to 3 components that made you at your peak?
Well, I'm thinking about my best podcast all time.
Spin Chicklets?
No. You're still upset about that, I see, huh? We're working through some problems. It's funny. We get a sports psychologist in here, and John and I start working through our problems together.
Go ahead.
No, so I'm thinking about my best podcast, and I think it's probably preparation and comfort and confidence a little bit. I'm already reflecting on my intro. I didn't love today's intro, but I can't let that affect the rest of the interview here, right, John? Is that the way it works? I'm
thinking of my parallel parking. I usually go past the car. I look out the window, and when the window's in the middle of the car, I come back and I'm right next to the curb one time, and Ryan smiles and gives me a thumbs up.
But what leads to that? Preparation, being patient?
A plan. I have a specific way that I execute, and I what do you say? Plan the work the plan. I think that's a good one. Hey, can I ask you, this is one that's troubling to me. So the hard thing with sports is there's only one team that gets to win the last game. So we're about to go into Stanley Cup Playoffs, and obviously the only goal is to win the Stanley Cup. But I already find myself creating off-ramps like, well, if we win the first round, then the season will be good. It'll be a step forward, and all of the joy we put into this year will not be for naught because we went forward. Is it unhealthy to have these sub goals? Should you just, hey, this is all about winning the Stanley Cup, period. And if you end up on one of those off ramps, you deal with it. Or is that unhealthy to have these little, like, I'm already preparing myself for not making it all the way with these secondary goals?
Yeah. What I'm hearing is two different questions from you. One is, how do you set goals? What's the most effective goal setting technique? I love this idea to have a dream, right? To have this big shot end goal. We call it an outcome goal, win the Stanley Cup, right? Like that's a huge motivator. However, we have to have smaller, what we call process goals that are more controllable, right? That we can set along the way to build that consistent confidence, right? Confidence is built on practice, skill, and experience. So if we're, where we're at right now, yeah, we want to win the Stanley Cup, but we got some work to do before then.
Yeah.
Right.
I like that.
And I think there's a lot of components and variables that can influence whether or not a team makes it to the championship game. Right. And so it's okay. What am I going to do right here, right now in my control that's going to give me the best shot possible? Well, maybe it's going to be communication. Maybe it's support of my teammates. Maybe it's going to be take the shot at all costs, take the shot. Right. So we start to develop those really specific, measurable, smaller process-oriented goals that are going to help lead us in there.
You know what?
It's fun to think about the dream.
I love that because I think I always thought of those two things as not connected, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're either going to win the cup or you settle for winning a round. But what you're saying is it's brick by brick.
Mm-hmm.
You got to kill St. Louis before you can get to round 2, before you can get to round 3, before you can get to the cup. So I think that's insightful for me to just think we gotta kill St. Louis. That's all we got to worry about right now. And if we do that, we're getting closer to that outcome goal. Is that what you called it? The dream.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It is a dream. It's a beautiful, beautiful dream.
And I think it's great that you have to focus on controlling only what you can control. You can't control a lot of the outcomes of your teammates or of some of the other things, but you focus on what you can control. And I'm picturing a fan at the XL Energy Center right now. The opposition scores a big goal to take a 1-goal lead, and that fan recognizes, and they're a Stanley on 7th listener.
Yeah.
And they say, you know what? I can make a difference. I can control what I can control. And he stands up by himself.
Wild.
Yes. And instead of being like, told you so, they're recognizing it. It takes that, I think, a little bit. But in terms of goal setting, again, Allie, John and I will go off on these tangents. We apologize.
I love it.
The setting goals, I have a theory on this. And I tell young children when they ask me now to not be afraid to set really big goals. And I think, like, John, you think the way it sounds like it's built in your head is that you kind of start with the goal like, oh, winning a round is okay. And somebody once upon a time told me winning a Stanley Cup is a very hard thing to do. So I'm not even going to set that goal. I'm just going to be happy with a round or two. And if we win a cup, great. And I do think that some people set their goals like that, but I believe it needs to be the opposite of that, where you set absolutely massive goals and you still work really hard for them and you find your process, and you maybe you don't achieve that goal, but you still raise your floor and you still become a better player and the best you can be because you've set goals and really had to work and strive hard for them. My example here is Marty Brodeur. I played with Marty Brodeur, and in his mind, it was less about him having a good game or a good season or winning a Stanley Cup. His goal was to be the best hockey player, the best goaltender that ever played. And because that, I saw him be able to turn the page on a bad game or on a bad season like I've never seen anybody else before. And he's able to block out so many distractions because his goal and his focus was on being the best goaltender of all times. So it was really like a clear path for him. But because of that, he won and got everything that everybody else wants in terms of their like little process goals, right? So where do you stand on setting huge, massive goals like that and expectation?
Yeah, I like both. I mean, can we have a combo, right? So can we have that massive goal? But what I like that he did is he focused on how can I be the best today?
Yeah.
And I bet he probably had a plan, a very specific of what does being the best, what does that mean? Maybe he's forechecking, maybe he's taking the shot, right? Maybe he's coachable. When coach gives feedback, he listens and then he applies it, right? My guess is he had a very specific action plan, right? Kind of tangible things he did to be the best. And if you do that, that's that consistency. You do that day in and day out, things will come.
Did they hear that, fans? If we can
I wanted to build on what you said, that, these two things, these little bricks, stacking bricks and to your goal. I used to coach with this guy, and when we would be winning the game, there'd be 4 minutes left in the game, and he would sit on the bench and he'd go, 4 miles to go. And then the clock, 3 miles to go, boys, 3 miles to go, 2 miles to go. And it was like this, it just made you realize, if you can just live in that moment and do what you're supposed to do, that the big audacious goal will come, but you're building it kind of brick by brick. What are your thoughts on manifesting? Because we met this guy this year, Rat, and early in the season, he said, the Wild were winning and they kind of got off to this hot start and no one knew what to make of it. And he said, no, this is the way it's going to be. This is what we do now. And we said, what do you mean? We're going to win the Stanley Cup? And he goes, yeah, we are. We're going to win the Stanley Cup. This is what we do now. Keep on trucking, get on board. And it made me feel so good. I actually, I believed him. B, I wanted to sit next to him and maybe fall asleep on his shoulder. But is that a thing? Like, can positive thoughts create things, or is that like only in Star Wars?
Absolutely. It feels good to be excited about something, does it not?
It does.
And I mean, there have been tons of research that has been done on what we call imagery or visualization, right? Kind of what you're explaining as manifesting, right? Why would we not want to prep our minds for success, right? Like especially in a competitive environment, why would we ever go in, we're going to lose, right? You're already starting below versus this is my game. Now, this is my season, right? This is our year.
I got the chills a little bit listening. Yeah. This is like, you're making me feel good. I hope the listeners are feeling good. Keep going. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Think about it like, okay, have you guys done any painting at your house? Like any renovations to your home?
Sadly, yes.
I'm an athlete. I have people that do that for me, but go ahead.
But think about like painting a wall. You prime it, right? Why do you prime a wall before you put the paint on?
So it lasts.
Get rid of the old paint.
Right? So the paint shines, so it sticks out, right? Like it makes the product better. Why would we not prime ourselves before anything? We do. Whether it's, hey, you're going to ask someone out on a date. Well, I'm going to prime myself, right? I'm going to prep that this person's going to say yes to me, right? I guarantee that's going to set you up for a better response of a positive yes than if, oh, well, maybe not. Like maybe they're going to say no, right? It's fun to be excited, to win, to have success, right? It's fun to be confident. It's versus the doubt. No, the doubt's there oftentimes, but if we can manifest this swag, this we're the best, we're elite, it's way more fun.
It is.
I had a couple one of the things Minnesotans do is they almost think there's a finite amount of joy and winning in the world. So even as a hockey fan, when the Timberwolves won a couple games, I was like, oh, I hope this ends soon because we need the gold coins for the Wild. And I found myself actively rooting against the Timberwolves just because I'm like, I don't want like that to be the dream.
Success is finite. You can only have so much.
I don't want their dream to come true because somehow it has a negative effect on my dream with the Wild. Is that just insane? What is it? Why do I think like that? And by the way, all of you Minnesota listeners think the exact same way.
No question.
I mean, or you watch a Viking game just waiting for something bad to happen so you can say Kirk Cousins
through your neighbor's window.
What does that mean? Why am I doing that?
Well, one, I think that's kind of embedded in athletics. There's this model in our psychology world called the scarcity model, which basically says there is only enough good to go around in the world for a select few. So if the Timberwolves win, that's somehow going to take away from our ability or chance to win. It could be, well, if coach gives this teammate praise, that's somehow taking away from me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And when we get in this scarcity model, we can get really protective, very loyal, which aren't necessarily bad things, but it can not produce the best collective feelings for everybody, versus if we took an abundance model to say, listen, there is enough good to go in the world, right? Everybody, and now at different times, may win or have success at different times, but there's enough. We know that's going to create a lot more joy, excitement, passion, and support for one another. But it's hard to do because I think we have that lens of sports. There's only one winner, right? There's one first place. And so I think we're almost set to kind of think that way. So you're not alone.
So I like abundance model.
Yeah.
I picture like a big
18,001.
fruit plate
Abundance.
with grapes and stuff, honey and cheese,
All over the place.
nuts.
So we've got to cover this. We don't want to take too much more of your time. A loss. The Wild have a tough game. The fans have a tough game at XL Energy Center. How do they rebound? How do you turn the page? How do you coach somebody to recognize, to learn from it, and say, all right, let's push this behind us?
Right. Well, can I ask, what did you do?
What did I do?
Mm-hmm.
I got well, really a good question. I got a little bit more focused. I put a little bit more pressure on myself, and I said, hey, you better be better, big guy.
Did you really do that?
To myself? I didn't call myself
Oh,
big
you're
guy.
talking about,
Let's say you lose a game like that. What do? Yeah, it's okay. There are things that you can clean up. You can do more. You can be harder in the shift, or you pay a little bit more attention to detail, but you have to find a way to get better. And you have to box out. There's a lot of negativity that for the media will be there, and it'll all be said. And there's gamesmanship in playoff hockey, but you have to be able to just turn the page and go out and execute. But you likely know that you have to bring a little bit more.
Yeah. And I think, and I'm curious if you did this, is one of the things we find is there has to be a reset, which is really nice in the game of hockey, because you have, at least not for goalies necessarily, but for other players, like you have natural breaks with shift changes.
Yeah.
And so I always suggest when I'm working with a player to say, okay, you can be as mad as you want. You can be upset, disappointed, whatever feelings show up, they're very real for you. But you get 30 seconds. And after that 30 seconds, we have to reset because it's no longer going to serve you. Now, sometimes we can use that right as fuel, the anger or frustration, but more times than not, right, it's that negative spiral that just pulls us in. So that's where you reset. And Ryan, I like what you're saying is, okay, what do I do next? It goes back to kind of like awareness, acceptance, action. What is going to be my action this next shift to step my game up? What have I trained? What can I trust that I know I'm capable of doing? And I think when you start to have that, it reshifts your focus onto next level.
So it's interesting because you usually work with athletes, and the fan model is really different, right? So I was at the game last night, and what I did, and I'm not proud of this, is I thought maybe we got a goalie problem. And this game didn't really matter because it's the last 3 games of the season. We didn't play all of our guys, and they played a bunch of hungry players, and so it's kind of a bullshit game anyway. So I basically made an excuse where this didn't count. Like if I was a little kid on the playground, I would have been like, I wasn't trying my hardest.
Right.
And also maybe this goalie isn't as good as I thought he was. Both terrible things as a fan, right? What would you say to a fan? I that's probably not good behavior by me.
Well, it's understandable behavior, right? Like you're justifying, we want to be right. We want to feel right. We want to make the world right. And you are trying to figure out a way to make that loss right. Now, I would probably suggest there may be healthier, more positive ways, right, to respond to that. But if that, again, as a fan, we feel a sense of belonging, like our team is an extension of ourselves, right? We feel that belonging, that their performance is a reflection of us. And so I think that's hard to be like, oh, I lost last night. Right. And so we have to kind of in our minds make not excuses, but reasons of why that was.
Yep,
and some are just healthier reasons than others.
I've got two more for you. One is, as the playoffs approach, the regular season ends. It's almost like a second season. How do you teach a player, a fan, or somebody to turn the page? They've hit one of their process goals, and the Wild have hit that process goal.
Yeah.
What's the reset button? What does that look like?
Well, two things. I think one, depending on how regular season went, we can build momentum. Right? If a team is building on success from regular season, there's nothing wrong with that. Oftentimes I'll have my players, like I'll go on and we'll watch film, and we almost want to create like a highlight reel of your successes or your moments where you shined. And that's what we want to build going in, of saying, this is why St. Louis is going down, right? All these reasons. We want items or data, right? To like show us or tell us why this is going to be solid. Now, there is a reset that needs to happen because it is a level playing field. It's clean, right? And so there has to be a clean slate to say anything's possible. But we prime that with the possible is us just starting game one, destroying them.
There you go. There you go. Well, let's say that happens, and I'm gonna prime the wall for what I do believe is going to come here. How should players and fans handle success in the postseason? So they win a series, they're dominant. How do you handle success?
That's a great question. And oftentimes people don't talk about that, right? We all strive for it. We want it, but there comes an infinite amount of pressure with success to maintain it, right? Okay, now we got it. Now we have to maintain it and have it last us for how many more series or games or shifts. It's a lot. But again, it goes back to being very mindful of right here, right now. That's great. We won game one. Solid. Let's build on it. But game two, are there adjustments? Are there changes we need to make to elevate our game? Right. And so again, it's taking it game by game because they're going to be hungry.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of like that David Goliath model a little bit, right? Like, how do we still keep that hunger and strive each and every time we're out?
Should I finish on my weird question?
Yeah. Is this Kirill?
I'm wondering if I'm having unhealthy thoughts to a Wild player. I'm a big Kirill Kaprizov fan, so I'm just going to give you a couple instances, and you tell me if these are not positive thoughts. You mentioned you were pregnant earlier. The first thing I thought was, I wonder if she's going to name the baby Kirill. I swear to God, that's the first thing I thought. Not lying, not a bit. Like, I was like, I wonder if that's not what you're going to name your kid. Then didn't have a great birthday. My birthday was on Monday. Yesterday was Kirill's birthday, and had a better day on his birthday than my birthday. Went to Moscow on the Hill to eat Russian food. Went to the game. I actually texted our client at the Wild to get the organist to play Happy Birthday, and he was like, I don't think he's going to do that, and this is kind of inappropriate. So do you think am I out of bounds? Am I having an emotional affair with Kirill Kaprizov? Maybe this is out of her jurisdiction. I don't know.
I think it's part of a fantasy, right? It's part of watching. That's what we love about sports. It's an escape, especially with how hard the last couple of years have been, you guys, with athletics being full force and back. It has been wonderful to be able to engage, to relate, to have those connections with these players. I mean, now from the player standpoint, that's a lot of pressure on the players for him to step up for your living his birthday out for you. But I think, that's okay. It's fun. That's why we watch movies. That's why it's a show. It's a performance. And I think it's fun to get involved in that in a lot of ways. But also then recognizing back to reality a little bit. Yeah, I'm not going to stalk him or anything. I like that, though. You're basically saying it's no different than dressing up as Darth Vader for a movie, being a big Kirill fan. Yeah. And think about that. What an honor for him or any of these players that are dedicating such incredible amounts of time, sacrifice to their craft, and to have people honor that and respect that. I mean, there's no better kind of acknowledgement of that.
Allie, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun.
You really helped us.
Yeah, you've helped us. The rest of my day is no doubt going to kick ass, and I'm already priming myself for success in the playoffs here. Even though I don't have a hand in it, but tell us where we can find you. I'm sure the listeners are going to love this, and they're going to want to know more about you.
Yeah. Well, first off, thank you for having me. You guys have been a joy to work with, and appreciate you just even taking the time to look at the mental side of the game. I think it's a growing field. More and more, I think the stigma around it's dropping. And I think doing this kind of stuff, I really appreciate that. I know the players, coaches, staff, everybody appreciates it. So thank you for that. I am at Achieve Performance Psychology. Check us out on Instagram or my website. But yeah, work with lots of different players, athletes, and would love to help anybody that wants to elevate their game to the next level.
Well, I tell you what, this is an endorsement for all those athletes. We've elevated.
I feel actually legitimately better right now.
Yeah. Find Allie, achieveperformancepsychology.com. I'm sure there's a phone number they can get on there too. So again, thank you so much. This has been a blast and really helpful.
All right. Thank you guys.
Nice to meet you. Well, she was great.
Yeah. I was slightly concerned that we would confuse her because we want to know the mentality of the players, but we also want to use the lens of the fan and kind of learn from both sides there. And she did a good job walking that line and illustrating what we're doing as fans if the fan were a player. But yeah, no, that was great. She, like I said, man, my day is going to be good. I'm walking away feeling pretty good about this. And I think the month of May is primed for some success.
And she's a bumper sticker machine, right? We had Yoda. There's no try. We had destroy St. Louis, she said. That's just a great thing. Like, yeah, destroy St. Louis. Let's do that. And then, this is my game. This is my puck. She was just, I really thought it was healthy. And the primer example, she made it tangible, why this stuff works. And we got to do our best to stay positive. We can't be like me last night at the Arizona game going, well, we're not trying our hardest. And, and I'm not sure about our goalie. Like, I just turned on them. They're like 18-1. And I was like pushing Fleury out of the foxhole. And, it was just awful as a fan. I got to be better.
Yeah, it was good. And like I said, I think now hopefully some of the Stanley on 7th fans, listeners will be at the XL Energy Center and they'll recognize some of these things and they'll set some process goals for themselves, some outcome goals. And eventually that leads to a better atmosphere in the building. The one thing I think we forgot to ask is if we think that players can feel the negative energy projected from fans to everybody on the ice, to the players. Do they feel that, right? And I love the question you had about the fact that you're hoping or you want the Timberwolves to lose because you think that success is scarce. Right?
Yeah, and she said there's a whole theory about this, but it's not a healthy theory. So we're in abundance mode. We have outcome goals, process goals. We're priming. There's no try. Yoda. Garen will love the Star Wars stuff. I just think she was wonderful. I can see how she makes money doing this.
Yeah, and to bring in the Timberwolves one last time, they're struggling over there. They've had a couple of big collapses, a couple situations where Minnesota fans can revert back to their old ways and say, see, I told you so.
Yeah,
this is smoke and mirrors. But we got to make sure that we block those feelings out, those thoughts out of our minds, those things that are happening in Minneapolis don't affect any outcomes or any experience at the XL Energy Center in St. Paul. And I think that she taught me that here today.
Yeah, and I was with a guy last night. We looked at the ESPN. Wolves were up by 6 or 7. And he just looked at me and goes, well, if anybody knows how to blow a 20-point lead, it's the Timberwolves. They'll probably lose. And it was just, you can already see the second there's some tension in the playoffs, half of our fan base is just going to go, well, another first round exit, regular season team. It was fun while it lasted. I mean, it's going to just be instant. We can't do that. We have to be better.
Well, I think the Wild have played well enough, and they've earned themselves a longer leash and maybe some insurance. Hey, speaking of insurance, if you've
that was nice. That was really smooth.
Yeah. If you get that letter in the mail, your rates go up a little bit, and you want to shop around, we've got a guy for you, Andy Hedlund, State Farm agent. You can find him at thehockeyagent.com. So whether you've got a new car, a new home, you want some more protection for those critical systems in your home, you know what? You got to give this guy a call. He's a hockey guy. You can trust him. Coach of a state high school hockey team. He was in the building last night for Kirill's birthday, the 26th.
Was he with Zuki?
No, he's a former Maverick, horns up.
Okay.
Yeah, and he was there to support Nate Smith, so he's that kind of guy too.
Nice.
Didn't play with Nate Smith, but goes to support the former Mav playing his first game in Minnesota with the Coyotes.
How did he do? Did he get a point or anything?
He didn't get a point, but he played pretty well.
Good.
Yeah, he was good. So Andy Hedlund, thehockeyagent.com. He'll cover you like you covered Moscow on the Hill last night for Kirill's 25th birthday.
Sputnik.
Great guy. Give him a shout.
Well, this was good. I feel like we got some really good positive thoughts. We got to finish. What is it? We have 2 games left. How many do the Blues have?
Blues have 1.
So, and we're exactly tied?
We're exactly tied, but Blues, so the advantage is the Wild have 2 games left.
So we just have to win one?
No, the advantage for the Blues is
tiebreaker.
They win any tiebreaker. So the Wild either need the Blues to lose,
and we win one,
or they need 3 points.
I got it. Okay, good. That's easy to follow.
Yeah.
Well, let's get home ice. I mean, I don't know how important it is, but let's just pretend it's important.
It's important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, we will be here until
it's here.